Hello booktube, hello book friends, welcome back to my channel and another video. And it's Tuesday, so it's a tag video. This is the spring is in the air, or at least on the calendar tag, and it was originally created by Daniela at Uncommon Reader and Reney at Beyond Books. And I've been tagged twice, I think, once by Pat at Book Chat with Pat, and once by Brian at Adventures in Literature. So I think, given that I've been tagged twice, I maybe ought to get on and do this one. So there are 9 prompts and a tag others prompt, and I've got a pile of books here for my answers. So yeah, let's get cracking. So prompt number 1: Spring Chicks. Name a book that made you feel warm and fuzzy. I don't really read books. I don't know. I don't really read books that make me feel warm and fuzzy, I suppose. Or maybe it's just what the term warm and fuzzy means to me. I think I have picked a book for that. I was going to cop out and say I couldn't pick a book, but I did pick a book, and I picked a book that I read earlier this year. Not maybe so much because it made me feel warm and fuzzy, but because it did bring back some happy memories of reading books by this author when I was much younger. And that's this. This is Gerald Durrell's Myself and Other Animals, which was brought out to celebrate what would have been, I think, is it his 100th birthday if he'd still been alive. So yeah, I think that's. I'm just trying to see if it was his 100th. It would have been his 100th birthday this year. So, as I say, not so much made me feel warm and fuzzy, but it did bring back kind of happy memories, and what these books meant to me growing up. I would say perhaps some of the text hasn't aged very well, but some of it is it has a lot of meaning for me anyway. Prompt number 2: April Showers or Spring Showers. A book that is set a book that is set near, in, or on the water, or has the word water in the title. Now, I think I've kind of hit all of those, actually. It's interesting that this is the first week of April that I'm recording this, and the forecast for the whole of this week has been bright sunshine, and it's been really warm and nice. So I'm quite pleased we haven't had any April showers yet, and fingers crossed that that's going to continue. I've been able to sit outside in the sun and read. So yeah, fingers crossed, no April showers, or maybe just some small ones, and we just have generally nice weather. But the book I've chosen for this. So this near, in, or on the water, and has the word water in the title. Well, it has the word water in the title. It's definitely in and on and near as well. And this is Roger Deakins' Waterlog. Now, this is a book that was written, I think, back in the 90s, 1990. 1999. Sadly, Roger Deakins died in 2006, quite young. He died from I think it was a brain tumour. But he set out to basically wild swim his way around the UK. So in all the sort of different waterways, some harbours and other places, some famous and some not so. And in some ways, I think probably sort of restarted a craze of wild swimming, and that's wild swimming now is very much bigger than it ever was. Certainly when this book was written, and this is his kind of journal of all of that swimming and places he visited, and the rivers and places he lakes and and lidos and pools that he swam in. It's a classic nature book about water and about the issues around water, and one that I dip back into quite regularly. So yeah, that's my pick for near in or on the water and has water in the title. Spring break. Talk about a time you took a break from reading and why. I don't think I've ever really taken a break from reading. There's been times when I was at university and I was very busy with academic stuff. I wasn't reading that much kind of outside of academic texts and things like that. So I wasn't reading a lot of fiction. I wouldn't say I wasn't reading, but I was perhaps not reading in the way that I do now or did before. There was also a time when we were in the throes of house moves and things like that, where we had a lot of books. So, for example, I'm a big Alistair MacLean fan, as you probably know, and I had all of his books boxed up because we were in the process of moving house, and it took so long that there was quite some time when these books didn't see the light of day. So yeah, that's another time. But I don't think there's ever really been a time when I've not been a reader or been reading. Problem number 4, Swallow's Homecoming, a book or an author you always go back to for comfort. There are a few, and I've got a whole video, and I don't know which corner it will pop up in, but I'll put a link to my Comfort Reads video here. But one of the authors, the book I've just picked off of the shelf is Dick Francis, who's a crime writer from sort of, I don't know, the early 2000s, way back into the sort of 60s and 70s. So this was published in 96. So yeah, just a book I really, one of the first sort of crime fiction authors I really got into, and will read again and again and again. So yeah, Dick Francis for that. 5, Blooms, a book that started slowly but blossomed to be one of your favourite reads. You know what I'm going to pick, don't you? Go on, have a guess. I tell you what, go write it in the comments now. Whatever this is, 7-8 minutes. Go and write it in the comments now. Tell me what you think. Go on, pause the video, go off and do it. Come back. Still here? Okay, you know what I'm going to pick. You know what I'm going to pick. The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas. It's a chunky book. It starts quite slowly, but my God, is it an amazing read. So yeah, that's my pick for that, as a book that started slowly but blossomed to be one of my favourite reads. And it must be one of my favourite reads because I keep mentioning it in any tag video. So yeah, there you go. Eggs in a Basket, 3 books that you want to read this spring. I've actually got 4 because there are, one is 2 volumes. Does that make sense? So I want to read these 3 at some point in the near future. The first 2, as I say, volume 1 and volume 2 of The Essential Terence Dicks, who wrote a lot of Doctor Who stories and scripts for the BBC. So these are Penguin editions, compendiums. The novelizations were always very short, like 100, 150 pages. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 in each. And let me read some of the titles of some of the stories. Doctor Who and the Dalek Invasion of Earth. Doctor Who and the Abominable Snowmen. Doctor Who and the Wheel in Space. Doctor Who and the Auton Invasion. Doctor Who and the Day of the Daleks. Doctor Who and the Genesis of the Daleks. Doctor Who and the Pyramid of Mars. Doctor Who and the Talons of Wen Chiang. Doctor Who and the Horror of Fang Rock. Doctor Who and the 5 Doctors. So he wrote a lot of very famous Doctor Who stories, and I want to read those at some point. The second one is Our Oaken Bones by Merlin Hanbury Tennyson. And this is basically a story of a family that through all sorts of let me read the flap. Reeling from the pain of devastating miscarriages and suffering from PTSD after military adventures in Afghanistan, Merlin and his wife Lizzie decide to leave the bustle of London and return to Merlin's childhood home, a Cornish hill farm called Cabilla in the heart of Bodmin Moor. There they are met by unexpected challenges, a farm slipping even further into debt, the discovery that the overgrazed and damaged woods running throughout the valley are in fact one of the UK's last remaining fragments of Atlantic temperate rainforest, and the sudden and near catastrophic strickening by COVID of Merlin's father, the explorer Robin. As they fall more in love with the rainforest that Merlin had adventured in as a child, so begins a fight to save not only themselves and their farm, but also one of the world's most endangered habitats. So yeah, definitely want to read that. It's part of my kind of getting back into natural history books. And another natural history book. This one is by an American author, Christopher Brown, and it's a natural history of empty lots. Empty lots being kind of abandoned spaces that have kind of naturally rewilded. So I'm going to look forward to reading that. So that was my 3/4. Green Pastures, a classic that never gets old. I've picked a children's book for this because although it's a children's book, it's one that I read most years, normally during spring before summer starts, because it reminds me of childhood summers that were warm, and you'd play outside, and and you'd have lots of adventures. It's Susan Cooper's Oversea Under Stone, and this is a copy that I picked up fairly recently, which I've got it's the first in the Dark is Rising sequence by Susan Cooper, which I think is 5 or 6 books, and I've got it in a volume with all of them in. But this one I got because this has some of the original illustrations in it, and obviously, of course, now I can't find this one. I was going to say I can't find them, but yeah. So that's and it is a classic. I don't know when I think it was written in the 50s or the 60s. 1965. So yeah, it predates me anyway. But yeah, so that's my classic. Pollen, a book or author you are allergic to. There's a lot of pollen about at the moment. I'm really suffering a bit this year. I'm not going to mention. There's a couple of authors actually. I have talked about them in other videos, and I'm not going to mention their names, but they have recently been allegations made against them, revelations revealed, authors that I really enjoyed, and in some cases have a lot, if not all, of their books, which are boxed up upstairs because I'm not quite sure what to do with them. And yeah, the allegations are very unpleasant. They've been in the all the media, social media, and I don't want to repeat them here because they're allegations, although I'm fairly certain there is a lot of truth behind them. I believe the people who have come forward, but yeah. So a couple of authors, I think you probably know who I'm talking about if you even remotely follow the news on authors. So yeah, they're definitely allergic to them, not reading their books for a while, if ever again. But it's difficult. It's separating out the the book from the author, and that's quite tough. Equinox, find 2 books on your shelf that have the exact same number of pages and talk briefly about them. I can't. I've looked through. They've all. I just cannot find 2 that have the same number of pages, and I've spent like half an hour looking. So I'm skipping this one. Sorry. I just can't find 2. And anyway, I had a bonus one for one of the other rounds. So yeah. Tag others. I will have a look and see who has already been tagged. I think a lot of people who I would normally tag have already been tagged. So I may well end up not tagging anyone, but we'll see. Anyway, thank you to Daniela and Reney for creating the tag. I've quite enjoyed picking some books for this one. And thank you to Pat and Brian for tagging me. And if you've made it this far, thank you to you for watching. I'm now going to go and wait with bated breath to see whether you guessed the Count of Monte Cristo or you came up with some other answer. Thank you for watching, and I will speak to you again another time. Goodbye.